Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'm going to read a little bit about Krishna from the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a summary study by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In a few minutes. I was attending an online session last night, and the topic, very, very briefly, super briefly, came up about flashbacks. There was really no discussion at that point about them, just flashed in the ether about flashbacks. And it's something to try to understand what it is so that they can go away. And I see devotees a lot of times are really stuck in flashback mode. Flashing back to things that makes them very mistrustful and fearful because they had some bad experience either in Krishna consciousness or even before Krishna consciousness with their families or in a personal relationship or something. And the fear is that it'll happen again. So they carry that flashback experience around. And they're kind of stuck in it. And Krishna consciousness is very much a present moment thing. It's very much a present, feeling the presence of Krishna, feeling at every moment the presence of Krishna, the presence of God, in one way or another. Some feel the presence of God in everything spiritual. Some feel the presence of God is within the heart of all living entities. And some feel the presence of God in his personal form and in his activities and in remembering his pastimes. That's not a flashback because he appeared 5,000 years ago. Oh, so you're just flashing back 5,000 years ago. He's not here now. But that's not the way God works. Remembering God and his pastimes 5,000 years ago is a present moment experience because he's absolute. It's a little different than when you fell off your tricycle when you were 5 years old and the kids threw stones at you. That's a little different. Flashing back like that than remembering Krishna. Because his pastimes are eternal, his form is eternal. and he's absolute. So just remembering Krishna means you're in the presence of Krishna. But if in the present moment we're preoccupied with other types of remembering, then there's no room for Krishna. So it's a battle, it's a struggle to understand how these flashbacks work. Recently, it was so much fun. There was a little 5-year-old here, and boy, he was a barrel of monkeys. He likes all the same things I do. He loved the rocking chair, and that cuckoo clock, man, that was good for 2-3 hours, because he had to wait a whole hour for the cuckoo to come out again. He would sit there like a cat in front of a fishbowl, waiting for the cuckoo to come out. It was great. I highly recommend, if you have a rambunctious 5-year-old, get a cuckoo clock. It's good for hours and hours and hours. So, he really liked the rocking chair. So do I, as you notice. I like the rocking chair too. So, he was in the rocking chair and he was really, really rocking. Now, a little 5-year-old, his feet don't touch the ground. So in order to get it to rock, he had to really go all the way back and then all the way forward, almost to the point of tipping, so that his feet would catch the ground. Then he'd push back, and he was having a great time. I wasn't worried about him, and his mother seemed fine, but his grandmother was very fearful. Don't do that, you're going to fall off, you're going to get hurt. Expressing her love and concern for her grandchild. So when she was around, he wouldn't do it. So then as soon as she'd leave the room, then he'd go again. When she'd come back in the room, he's quiet. So they learn quick. So we were sitting there, his grandmother left the room, and he said, "Don't worry, I'm fine, because my feet, I catch it with my feet. I'm not going to go over, I catch it with my feet." Because his feet don't touch the ground, he had to go all the way forward for his feet to touch the ground. So I said, "May your feet never fail you." And he stopped for a minute and he said, "What do people do that don't have feet?" So then his mother and I, we had a little discussion about, it's very unfortunate. There are some people who either were born without feet or have lost their feet or a foot in an accident. It's very difficult. They have to get some sort of plastic foot, and then they have to learn how to walk all over again. It makes their life very difficult. And then his mother, she's a pretty intelligent lady, she said, yeah, and they have pain, even though they don't have the foot or the feet. They have what's called phantom pain. They think their foot hurts, but they don't have a foot. So there are connections there. How much of it is on the subtle plane, and how much of it is actually neurological, if pain impulses are stored up for the foot that doesn't exist anymore. So it's kind of like that, having these flashbacks to when this happened and when that happened. It's also connected to the neurology. If there was an abusive parent, say a parent was abusive, and they used to beat the child. So those beatings, that pain, that physical pain, as well as the emotional pain, can be stored up neurologically, as well as just the memory. And there are therapeutic treatments that can go on to help the person get relieved from those neurological and emotional flashbacks. They can get to freedom from it. But freedom from it is not enough. It has to be Krishna to really get freed from all the pain and suffering of the material world. But I see devotees, a lot of times, they can't really fully enter the present moment in Krishna consciousness because they're carrying around some flashbacks. And they're not just like subtle flashbacks. A lot of times they're stored up neurologically, and they can't get free until they get some release. They may not even understand what it is, why they keep going back to that, flashing back to that incident or those things, why they remember so vividly. I remember Prabhupada said it's like if there's a fan and it's plugged in to the wall and it's getting electricity, Hare Krishna, that you pull the plug out of the wall, it's not plugged in anymore, but the fan goes around and around and around and around, and eventually it will stop if it's not plugged in. So sometimes I see that they're still kind of plugged into these flashbacks, and then it comes into the present moment, and they talk about it and they relive it, and it's like sometimes, what is it, PTSD, when a soldier comes home from war, and he's seen so many horrible things. He's seen people die, he's actually really had to kill people, or his best buddy, he sees him shot and killed, or something happens, and they have these flashbacks, like they'll hear a car backfiring, they'll think it's a gun going off, and they go cuckoo house. So yeah, we say conditioning. It is, it's conditioning, and it's on a lot of levels. It's not just in the mind, although the mind is what processes it, but it can be neurologically connected also. So recognizing how it works, we can get free from it and actually be in the present moment, in Krishna consciousness, which is the goal. What is it? Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the past, it sleeps, and the future, we don't know what it is. It's kind of like a dream state. It could or it could happen. All we have is the present moment. Materialists are good at that too. But they take advantage of the present moment for sense gratification, but we take advantage of the present moment for Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Practicing, aligning everything, neurological, engage in devotional service, engage the body and the senses. It's neurological engagement, smelling flowers, incense, tasting prasadam, that's all neurological, to help the mind become purified in Krishna consciousness and get rid of all these flashbacks. They might still be there, but they're kind of like, have you ever looked at an old photo album and it was like these old black and white photos, and you kind of look at the relative or the friend in the black and white photo, and you kind of sort of remember, but it doesn't have a bite or a sting to it. Your day isn't ruined, you know. You're okay, because you're in the present moment. Krishna is in the present moment, in devotional consciousness, devotion to Krishna. So there's another session tonight, online session. I think I want to bring this up. It's more of an open forum tonight. It's not read a verse and then discuss it. It's whatever it's kind of isti-ghosty type. I'm going to see if maybe I should, if it would be good, I could bring this topic up and see, some discussion on it. But then there's other things going on, like yesterday I was thinking how it's not just neurological and it's not just subtle, but you're also dealing with entities, and people devotees too, can be very much disturbed by other entities, subtle entities. So there's a lot going on in the present moment. The only shelter is Krishna from all of this stuff, from the flashbacks, from the subtle entities, from the not so subtle entities, from all the disturbances. from the sinkholes, the black holes, and the other disturbances. The only shelter is Krishna, in the present moment. At first, the practice may seem a little mechanical. That's because we're dealing maybe with this kind of neurological conditioning in the mind flashing back. Like, there's that nice, I really appreciate this. So simple, these little anecdotes about the two monks that are walking. They're celibate monks. And they're walking on foot, a journey. Say India, could be anywhere, but undeveloped country. And they're walking, and they have to cross the river, and they reach the point where people cross the river. And there's a woman there, and she's very old, her body is feeble, and she's not going to be able to make it across the river because there's some strong currents, and she's just too weak and feeble to go. And she's crying. So one of the monks, he says, why are you so upset? What's wrong? And she says, my daughter lives on the other side, and she needs help. She's very sick, and I want to go to her and take care of her, but I can't cross the river. So he says, don't worry, I'll help you. And he picks her up and he puts her on his shoulders, like when you have those chicken fights, So she's sitting up there with her legs hanging down and her other parts right against his head. And he carries her across the river, and then he puts her down. She goes on her way to help her daughter. And the other, his buddy, his monk friend, he's like, what did you just do? We're not supposed to even look at a woman or talk to women. We're celibate monks. You picked her up, you put her in, you carried her across the... What did you do? So, monk doesn't answer. He doesn't say anything. And he keeps walking. They keep walking on their journey on the other side now. A few minutes later, the other one pipes up again. I can't believe you did that. That's totally against our practice. You picked her up. It was a woman. So he's quiet, doesn't say anything. And they go along. A few more minutes later, the other one pipes up again with the same old... has what's called a flashback. He can't process what just happened. And he's stuck there because it was very upsetting for him that his friend, who he trusts, picked up a woman. And now he's stuck. So it's a kind of flashback. So the monk that did that service, helped that poor person, he turns to his friend and he says, yes, I picked her up. Yes, I put her on my shoulders. Yes, I carried her across the river. Yes, I put her down. But you're still carrying her. I picked her up, carried her, put her down. You're still carrying her. So how to deal with these things that get us stuck? We're not free to move on into the present moment in Krishna consciousness. How do you get free from that? Krishna sends help. He brings us into the association of devotees who are not stuck in flashback mode. And then we stand a chance of, oh, I see why I'm so upset about all of this. I'm in a flashback mode for whatever it is we're flashing back on, whatever it is we're carrying that we don't need. Another little example or illustration, these are like pictures, is that, again, crossing the river, carrying a big bag of crap, claiming it as yours, big bag of stuff. You're not going to be able to cross the river. You have to put the stuff down. You got to leave it in order to move on. So all these disturbing events in the past, you have to put them down. There's another example I'm remembering of how this works. One Christmas, which must have been 30 years ago, see, I'm flashing back, but this I can use. This is like a little something I can use to understand the present moment, not that I'm stuck back there. It was about 30 years ago, and I was selling paintings in a mall in Indiana to try to help raise funds for a school. And also I needed a little money, so we were doing 50-50. And during the Christmas break, I went out to Indiana to sell these paintings. Boy, Indiana in the winter, there's nothing to stop that snow, man. There's snow. It's just like cornfields, you know. It's like the snow is like, and it drifts. Oh, man. So there I am, December in Indiana in a mall. And people would come into the shopping mall just to exercise, to walk around. Because it's snow, you can't. What can you do? Everybody's snowbound. So they would come into the mall just to walk around and get some exercise and to look at other people. And so there were two different people, young men about the same age, that would come at different times just to get out and see other people. And they were in wheelchairs. Each one was in a wheelchair. And they would wheel around the mall and talk to people and just to socialize. They're in the mid-20s. So not at the same time, two different people completely, but they had the same situation in life. They were in motorcycle accidents. Each one, both of them, had motorcycle accidents and put them in a wheelchair for life. So one of them, he was very cheerful. He was very happy. Wheelchair, no wheelchair. He loved people. He loved life. Everybody liked to talk to him. He was always smiling and friendly. And he would stop by my little painting booth and we'd chit-chat. And he was just a delight. You could see, people would come up to him. Oh, hey, how you doing today? Give him a little pat on the back or a hug or something, He was fine. He's in a wheelchair, but he was fine. He had love in his heart. He wasn't bitter. And the other man, he was bitter and angry and upset, and he felt his life had been ruined. He was very sour. And he would come by the booth, and I would try to talk to him, but he was very negative about everything. He was angry. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna. He was stuck on his accident, why he was like this, and he couldn't accept his situation and go on. He was angry. It was the driver's fault in the car, and he was flashback on everything. And it was practically all he could think about was his situation. Bitter. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. If this hadn't happened, or that hadn't happened, or if Hare Krishna. The other one, he was just going on with his life. Wheelchair, no wheelchair. Didn't matter. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So, how to get free of these flashbacks? There's no room for them because you're so absorbed in Krishna, you don't have time for them. Who needs them? So this is the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a summary study by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. And Krishna erects the Dvārakā fort. It's chapter 49. So Jarasandha has been attacking Mathura. He's done it 17 times. 17 times all of his military force has been completely destroyed by Krishna and Balaram. And he keeps coming. So now he's coming to attack for the 18th time. The reason he's attacking Krishna is because Krishna killed Kamsa. And Jarasandha had 2 wives, Asti and Prapti, 2 queens. And Kamsa was their husband. They were wives of King Kamsa. And now they've been left as widows. They had to go back. And Kamsa didn't have grown sons. So now they have to go back to their father's house. It's very disgraceful. It's very unhappy for the ladies. They don't have a husband. They're in their father's house. And he's very angry what Krishna did by killing Kamsa. It was a very personal thing for him. You've put us in this awkward position. It's a terrible, awkward position. I'm a powerful king, and my daughters now have to live like this. So he's very angry. He's actually related to Krishna. It's a distant relative. So he's attacking now for the 18th time. But this time, there is a demonic king, Khalievan, who also wants to attack Mathura. He's heard that Mathura is a very opulent place and that a very great king is there, Krishna. Krishna's not the king. Ugrasen is the king. Krishna's in the royal family. He's a prince. And he's very powerful, and he's heard that he's very victorious in battle. And so this Khalievan thinks, yes, this is the enemy I want to fight, because they like to fight. And it should be a suitable enemy, someone that they can really fight. So he's really excited about this. I'm going to have a fight. It's going to be to the death, either me or him. And I am totally into it. Let's go. So he's preparing to attack. He's actually attacking right now. Hare Krishna. But Krishna, he decided this was a difficult situation. He could deal with Jarasandha. He'd already done it 17 times. But if he has to deal with Khalievan at the same time, this is going to be, this is too much to ask, because he's not worried about himself, but his family members could be attacked. And he didn't want that. So he's built a fort. The fort is actually in Mathura. It said that it's within the sea, within Mathura, the district of Mathura. And it's Vishwakarma, the architect of the Demigods, has helped. So it's an extraordinary fort within the sea. And all the demigods have sent special gifts and benedictions because Krishna was building a city that he wanted to build. So they are offering all kinds of... They sent a Parijata flower of the heavenly planet to be planted in the city. They sent a parliamentary house Varuna presented a horse, all white with black ears, could run at the speed of mind. The treasurer sent mystic powers, gave a gift of mystic powers. And they sent out their respective gifts. 33 million of them sent gifts, according to their own capacity. So there's a lot going on in Dvārakā. So this proves that there are undoubtedly innumerable demigods, but none of them are independent of Krishna. As stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna is the Supreme Master and all others are servants. So all the servants took the opportunity of rendering service to Krishna when he was personally present within this universe. This example should be followed by all, especially those who are Krishna conscious, for they should serve Krishna by their respective abilities. When the city was fully constructed, according to plan, Krishna transferred all the inhabitants of Mathura and entrusted Shri Balaram as the city father. After this, he consulted with Balaram, and being garlanded with lotus flowers, he came out of the city to meet Khalievan, who had already seized Mathura without taking up any weapons. So Khalievan had already taken control of Mathura, but there was no one there. They were all in the fort within Mathura, now called Dvārakā. When Krishna came out of the city, Khalievan, who had never seen Krishna before, saw him to be extraordinarily beautiful, dressed in yellow garments. Passing through his assembly of soldiers, Krishna appeared like the moon in the sky, passing through the assembled clouds. So Khalievan is meeting death. Khalievan was fortunate enough to see the lines of Srivatsa, a particular impression on the chest of Sri Krishna, and the Kaustubha jewel which he was wearing. Khalievan saw him, however, in his Vishnu form, with a well-built body, with 4 hands, and eyes like newly blooming lotus petals. Krishna appeared blissful, with a handsome forehead and beautiful face, with smiling, restless eyes and moving earrings. Before seeing Krishna, Khalievan had heard about him from Narada, and now the descriptions of Narada were confirmed. He noticed Krishna's specific marks and the jewels on his chest, his beautiful garland of lotus flowers, his lotus-like eyes, and similarly beautiful bodily features. 4 arms. It's hard for us to get our mind around that. How beautiful Krishna is with 4 arms. It's hard for us. Hare Krishna. It was hard for Arjuna too. When he saw Krishna's Vishnu form, he said, "Can I see the other one, please? The 2-armed one? I can relate to that one a little better." But this is what Khalievan has seen. He concluded that this beautiful personality must be Vasudeva, because every description of Narada's, which he had heard previously, was substantiated by the presence of Krishna. So Khalievan, he's a demonic king, but he's heard about Krishna from Narada Muni. Khalievan was very much astonished to see that he was passing through without any weapons in his hands and without any chariot. He was simply walking on foot. Khalievan had come to fight with Krishna, and yet he had sufficient principles not to take up any kind of weapon. He decided to fight with him hand to hand. Thus, he prepared to capture Krishna and fight. Krishna, however, went ahead without looking at Kṛṣṇa. And Kṛṣṇa began to follow him with a desire to capture him. But in spite of all his swift running, he could not capture Krishna. Krishna cannot be captured even by the mental speed attained by great yogis. So this is how he's approaching Krishna. He's running after him, trying to capture him. Why? Because he wants to kill him. But Krishna's leading him on. Oh, you want to capture me? Okay, come on. He can be captured only by devotional service. And Kṛṣṇa was not practiced in devotional service. He wanted to capture Krishna, and he could not do so, so he was following him from behind. That's like Kamsa also. All he could do was think about Krishna, but he was thinking about Krishna in fear, and he also wanted to kill Krishna, but he was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna, Krishna's form, Vishnu particularly. So here also, Kṛṣṇa is thinking about, it's supposed to be auspicious when your left eye twitches. So the left eye is doing the twitch thing. Auspicious. Krishna. He wanted to capture Krishna, and he could not do so. He was following him from behind. Kṛṣṇa began running very fast, and he was thinking, now I am nearer. I will capture him. But he could not. So we see that with Mother Yasoda. Now I will tie Krishna up. I'll go get some more rope, and I'll get more rope, and more rope. But it was always too short. She couldn't tie Krishna up that way. But Mother Yasoda, she had devotion. So Krishna finally let her tie him up. But Kṛṣṇa doesn't have devotion, and he's running after Krishna. I'll capture him. Krishna led him far away, and he entered the cave of the hill. Kṛṣṇa thought that Krishna was trying to avoid fighting with him and was therefore taking shelter of the cave. He began to chastise him with the following words. Oh, you Krishna, I heard that you are a great hero born in the dynasty of Yadu, but I see you're verily running away from fighting like a coward. It is not worthy of your good name and family tradition. Kṛṣṇa was following, running very fast, but still he could not catch Krishna because he was not freed from all contaminations of sinful life. Krishna. According to Vedic culture, anyone who does not live following the regulative principles of life observed by the higher castes, like the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and even the laborer class, is called malecha. The Vedic social situation is so planned that persons who are accepted as Sudras can gradually be elevated to the position of Brahmanas by the cultural advancement known as samskara, or the purificatory process. The Prabhupada was acting on this principle in preaching in the Western countries, but he was preaching to those who are even lower than Sudra, malechas, meat eaters, intoxication takers, sex mongers, gamblers, and transforming them into even more than Brahmanas, Vaishnavas. The version of the Vedic scriptures is that no one becomes a Brahmin or a malecha simply by birth. By birth, everyone is accepted as Sudra. One has to elevate himself by the purificatory process to the stage of rabbinical life. If he doesn't, he degrades himself further, then he is called a malecha. Kṛṣṇa belonged to the class of malechas and yavanas. He was contaminated by sinful activities and could not approach Krishna. The principles from which higher class men are restricted, namely illicit sex indulgence, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication, are part and parcel of the lives of the Mlechas and Yavanas. Being bound by such sinful activities, one cannot make any advancement in God realization. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that only one who is completely freed from all sinful reactions can be engaged in devotional service for Krishna consciousness. So in that session last night online, this was also discussed. As someone who is to become freed from sinful reactions in order to approach Krishna. And that also would tie in with having these flashbacks. We become freed from that in order to approach Krishna. Because those things that happen that cause this trauma are karmic reactions. That's why they happen. They're karmic reactions. So to become free from karmic reactions, to be able to approach Krishna. So Khalievan couldn't. He was engaged in all kinds of activities that were sure to bring him all kinds of karmic reactions. So he was stuck. But somehow or other, by the mercy of his spiritual master, Narada, he heard about Krishna and now was trying to capture Krishna. When Krishna entered the cave of the hill, it was Narada that told him how powerful Krishna was, and what a great fighter Krishna was. He was glorifying Krishna to this Khalievan. So what does he want to do? He hears someone he wants to fight with him. And so, here we go. When Krishna entered the cave of the hill, Khalievan followed, chastising him with various harsh words. Krishna suddenly disappeared from the demon's sight. But Khalievan followed and also entered the cave. The first thing he saw was a man lying down asleep within the cave. Khalievan was very anxious to fight with Krishna, and when he could not see Krishna, but saw instead only a man lying down, he thought that Krishna was sleeping within the cave. He was so worked up that he lost his discrimination. He couldn't see who it was. It was someone, and he wanted so badly to fight, all right, I'm going to fight with this one. It's got to be Krishna. He was so worked up. Khalievan was very puffed up and proud of his strength, and he thought Krishna was avoiding the fight. Therefore, he very strongly kicked the sleeping man, thinking him to be Krishna. The sleeping man had been lying down for a very long time. When he was awakened by the kicking of Khalievan, he immediately opened his eyes and began to look around in all directions. At last, he began to see Khalievan, who was standing nearby. The man was untimely awakened and therefore very angry, and when he looked at Khalievan in an angry mood, rays of fire emanated from his eyes, and Khalievan burnt into ashes within a moment. Whoops. Uh-oh. Sorry, I thought you were Krishna. No, I'm not Krishna. And you woke me up before I should have been awakened. Rawr. Krishna. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 49th chapter of Krishna. Krishna erects the Dvārakā fort. So he's taking care of Khalievan. He's out of the picture. But now Jarasandha needs to be reckoned with because he's coming for the 18th time. So the next chapter is a discussion of who that sleeping man was and why he had that ability to simply burn someone to ashes by looking at them. I've gotten some pretty harsh stares from others before. But that's really harsh. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.